but I'll make sure that you're engrossed for the next 10 minutes or so. And there are some valuable key takeaways out of it. Instead of just talking broadly about the company and the product, what I thought was give you some insights about what's happening in the India landscape and give you some takeaways and recommendations instead of a classical product pitch. That sounds like an appetizer? Yeah? Let's go for it. So what's happening on the threat landscape? Very interesting, right? If you really look at it, people spoke about and touched upon WannaCry, people spoke about state-sponsored attacks and stuff like that. But if you really carefully look at what are the key takeaways out of these attacks, is a classical WannaCry was the first malware which never had user intervention. So we're getting into a new era. Number two, Bad Rabbit had the same code what WannaCry used, Eternal Blue. Reusability of codes. That's new for us. Nyetya, very classical state-sponsored, and that's pretty new beyond the Chinese hackers per se, right? And if you look at it, there's a huge rise on supply chain attacks, and that's pretty new. The reason why I'm saying it's new is people are not going to spend time in hacking your network, your data center, but look at the trusted relationship what you would have in your customary laundry list of hardware and software what you would use. So CC Cleaner, can you guess how many downloads it had? 5 million downloads a week. And that's a trusted relationship what CC Cleaner had with their customers. So people are going to use your trusted relationship to get into your setup and plant your malwares in your update servers. This is new, right? And the new ones, which is like the VPN filter, people are going to use the trusted devices what you use and have the vulnerabilities planted through them. This is completely different from CodeRed, Nimda, what we would have been used to. So the classical attacks have changed, and that's a point what I want to highlight. And I'm pretty sure you all know about crypto mining. Here you're not the victim, but I'm going to use your CPU, and you're going to use your memory to mine cryptocurrency. This is new. So in the last 18 months, what you see, the nature of attacks have changed dramatically. And I just want to quickly shift gears towards what do we see as summary of threat landscape. A lot of people, a lot of hype about zero-day attacks. I think zero-day is behind us. Question what customers are asking is, can you predict an attack at the brewing stage, at the reconnaissance stage? That's where I see the value, right? Not after a zero-day attack is being launched. When a zero-day attack is getting into your network at the reconnaissance stage, can I find out at the brewing stage of an attack? Predictability of an attack is a lot more important than anything else, right? And the second point is so important because we are very used to buying customary security products, 100 gig firewall, 1 gig firewall, massive speeds and feeds, and we say application visibility. So there is a game called speeds and feeds and the feature game. We at Cisco believe that that's going to the dustbin. Customers really don't care about what's your speed. Customers don't really care about your feature game. All they care about is your time to detect. You have an attack, do you have a patch, how quickly it is automated, how quickly it's simplifying my security automation process. Customers are really worried about security automation and time to detect, not more speeds and feeds. Endpoint is becoming a lot more important than ever because that's the weakest link to get into your network or your organization's security loopholes per se, right? Security threat intelligence is becoming far more important than product features, right? What's your sample size of malware samples? What do you handle a day? That's far more important than your tracking of your respective feature game, right? So threat intel is going to become a lot more important than anybody else, right? And customers are really looking for quick visibility. They really don't want to spend many years to look at what's happening on your setup. So the idea here is to get quick visibility, right? And security is a moving target for many of the organizations depending upon the maturity. So it's a continuum. So customers are not really going to buy lock and barrel stack of security products, but they're going to pick and choose what is more important to them. And that's something which we are seeing. And the problem of cybersecurity is not an enterprise problem. And we are seeing it's a community problem. And this community is enterprise, telco, OEMs, government, citizens. And that's a larger sales cycle, larger community which is getting built. And events like this brings a lot more cross-functional people around. It's just not a Cisco product versus XYZ product vendors. It's about how good these communities talk to each other and how they are cyber prepared. So this is from a threat landscape point of view. And we just want to quickly get onto a study what Cisco did across 11 countries. And the sample size is good enough for India. It's about 10 to 12% of them. Roughly about 200 odd Indian enterprises have been interviewed. And what is coming out is 3 critical areas of concern. The number of alerts what an Indian enterprise get is anywhere between 5,000 alerts to about 500K alerts, depending upon the size. And if you really look at in the large enterprise is where the number of alerts is growing very high compared to the global standards in India. If you look at the number of alerts, what you see in the 250 to 500, that's the highest from an Indian point of view. So customers are today inundated with a lot more alerts, and their ability to triage those 100 alerts to a simple 10 alerts which is important to them, that's the biggest challenge. And that's what the Indian customers are actually saying to us. The number of security vendors, if you really look at it, it's increasing, right? Every vendor product will have a separate console. Every single console will throw its alerts. How do I get a single view of my security posture to start with? And we all thought SIM is going to give it to us, and SIM turns out to be a lot more blinking Christmas tree nowadays. And how do you triage that information? That's a lot more Indian customers are asking for. And the cost of breaches. If you really look at the cost of breaches, it's a very, very bipolar market what we're seeing, where less than 100K, 27% people said, oh, my cost of breach is about $100,000. But you look at the last piece, which is about an additional 21% there. The cost of breach in the very large enterprise is increasing. So one, on the SMB side, it's increasing, and a classical large enterprise is also increasing. This is a very, very important data point. Customers who are not as pervasive as a large enterprise are still getting attacked, and customers who are well secured are getting attacked as well. And that shows the trend per se, right? In summary, what we saw from the study is cyber awareness is definitely improved. But if you really look at, customers are inundated with multiple consoles, and that security triaging is becoming a big problem to them, right? And the last, Indian customers are really craving for automation of security. The number of alerts, the cost of breach, and the number of vendors, it's all pointing towards how do I enable automation per se. Some of the key recommendations, what we want to sort of give it back to our customers. How do you look at automating your security policies into a heterogeneous environment? And that's the key takeaway. And customers are really wanting to have that quick snap visibility rather than having to spend years to look at what is their security posture. How do I get my quick visibility of what's happening in half an hour? The real ask from customers, right? And they are actually augmenting a lot more on the endpoints, because that's continue to becoming a most vulnerable point. So we thought we'll share across these key takeaways. And another key takeaway is customers are adopting cloud, and not many people said like cloud is the most vulnerable point because it gives scale. But the philosophy what Cisco believes is, how do you make cloud as a threat inhibitor? Because cloud does give scale per se in terms of mitigation. And we are seeing companies using cloud for scale to actually mitigate attacks and as well as get a better threat intel. And what are we doing at Cisco? It's a large $2.5 billion business from Cisco, and we have spent close to about $4 billion in terms of acquiring 24 companies in the last 6 years, and it's a large portfolio. And what we have done while doing this acquisition is clearly a philosophy of 4 pillars. Across all of our products, we share alerts, we share events, we share threat intelligence, we share contextual information. Any acquisitions what we do, we are very clear about if we are able to do these 4 things, so that the customers get a single view of what's happening across all products. For example, OpenDNS was a DNS-based protection. Duos is a 2-factor authentication, right? And let's say SourceFire was one of the best IPS, but we made sure these 4 fundamentals of sharing alerts, events, contextual information, and threat intelligence is integrated. So that's the first step what Cisco is actually sort of making there. And what we believe is, if you detect an attack once, how do you protect across? Because a customer's environment can be an endpoint. How do you make sure that intelligence is given back into the cloud and it's pushed across network, endpoint, and cloud? This is a very important philosophy for us, whereby we at an endpoint, a network firewall will get to know about it. And same thing with an intelligence, what we get in an umbrella as an OpenDNS, that gets fed into all our products. So essentially, we mashed up all our large portfolio of products, making sure that the data classification is done, whereby we share those alerts cognitively, right? And what we see is close to about 600 billion email samples, 16 billion web requests, and the number of malware samples what we handle a day is close to about 1.8 million malware samples. That's the scale what we bring in back to our customers. And all these products are integrated, whereby these 4 fundamental principles rest upon. And it's not just about products, but we think, how do you make sure the product is rightfully configured? We offer the services also on top of it. And this is an important initiative what Cisco brings in. It's not about just the products, but how do you enrich your people? And what we have opened up is a cyber range center in Delhi, where we trained close to about 500 people till date in terms of going through a rigorous 5-day program on cyber preparedness against real-life attacks. So it is about training people, augmenting their skill sets, not just the product intelligence per se. The people who are actually day-to-day managing needs to be trained on real-life setups. And across the globe, close to about 100 cyber ranges workshops have been done. And this is our last slide. Cisco is a large $50 billion company, and security is less than $3 billion from a revenue, but a very strong commitment to securing our customers, and that's something which we want to leave it across the table. I think I gave back a little bit more time for lunch, hopefully, right? And this appetizer will stay on to you. I'm around for another hour or so. Feel free to interact. I'm pretty sure you will have some pertaining questions, and I will give the lunch back to you from a time point of view. Thank you for your patience.